in the movie.
Live.
Welcome everybody online. I'm just going to go with, okay. Yeah.
So many devices. Hey, everybody. Welcome. You can hear me now, yeah? Felicia, Annika, good. Radhika. All right, let's welcome everybody. Welcome everyone here in our studio audience. Let's begin by taking roll, and then we'll get to, we have a tight agenda today for our meeting, going for an hour, so we'll try to get things going. And so let me take roll. William Newman.
Here.
Felicia is there. You can just sort of. Garrick.
Here.
Jeremy, not yet. Marissa.
Here.
Marsha, I see Marsha on there. Me, Usman Paragreen's here. Renika is here. Hi, Renika.
Here.
And Rachel is here. So we are all here, except for Jeremy, which I'll keep checking my email to see if he's having any trouble logging in or finding anything. So yeah, let's call the meeting to order. I did want to ask if we have people to approve the minutes, if people had time to take a look at those, and if we're feeling comfortable approving those. Move this way. So.
Were those attached to the agenda or the?
They are sent around. Yeah, they're on the city page, but they were sent around. So I don't know if you guys were able to check your email yesterday.
I think we have to, I could be wrong, but I think that we have to post them in order to approve them.
Oh, okay, they're posted. They're posted.
It was the opposite.
Yes, I think Anthony sent them. I got them via email with Anthony.
But also I see them, I think was that last month? No, I thought they were posted.
Or like posted to the agenda.
Okay. Let's say.
My understanding of the protocol is that the minutes are approved and then posted to the government website. But if that's...
So I know, as I understand it, and I really could be wrong, I wish Laura was here. I thought that they had to be posted to the agenda for approval, and then when they're archived, for the archive of the approved minutes, like that's what gets posted to the city page.
Okay.
But
that's a little awkward though, right? Because if they're not approved and then it's out there for the public to see.
It is a little strange.
Well, as an agenda item to be approved, for review, prior to approval. I could be, we can.
Well, also,
yeah.
If we approve them,
but also all of our meetings are recorded and broadcasted. So
yeah,
any of the minutes, it's just stuff that we've already seen before or people will have seen.
Technically, but will be noted.
Yeah. I think in theory it's so that the public who watched it could write in and be like, oh, that's not. Right. That they have an opportunity as well to say that that's not right. But so that being said.
Okay. Yeah, we could table it, but if you do check your email, commissioners, yes. It was sent around, so you can maybe take a look at it, and we could table it for now, and then come back to. We're just happy we have minutes, actually. Yeah. So let's just applaud us having minutes. So we'll scoop around and take a look at those. Let's get going with with public comments. Yeah. Public, I don't think there's anyone online right now, but public in the room. Oh, Ed Olmsted. His hand is raised. So recognize Ed.
Thank you. My name is Ed Olmsted and I live in Florence. I wanted to thank each one of you who has agreed to serve on this commission. I believe you've been demonstrating values that most people in our community embrace. Calm, respectful conversation is also direct and honest. These conversations have been places where facts are carefully confirmed, disagreements are addressed directly, collaborative ways forward are sought, and productive paths forward are advocated. I just believe that your work and your example as commissioners is benefiting and will benefit us all in Northampton. It is an answer in itself to the pervasive problems of misinformation and divisive words that we live among in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Those in the room? Any other comments? All right. So let's get started then. Let's pass the mic to Bill to get started with talking about discussion of racially restrictive covenants, responsible institutions, how to proceed. Yeah?
I sent out before this meeting, mid-afternoon, an updated draft of the recommendations. They are not substantially different from what we've all reviewed before. The way I've set it up is I've had the relatively minor edits you'll see in blue, bold, and those sections which are new or which have been moved are highlighted with a yellow background, so it's easy to follow. With regard to the issue of the deeds themselves, let me first admit failure. I tried to write a synopsis of what the deeds are, where they are, what institutions were involved, without naming the institutions, because I want to be transparent. We want to be transparent with ourselves and others, but we don't want to leak out the information. We just want to do it. In defense of us, there's an inherent tension here between our need to be transparent with ourselves and the community and our need to be, I think, fair, and that is transparent with the institutions that we're reporting on. I did try to write it, and at the end I said I can't send this out. It borders on the incoherent. It is not helpful. So let me report on what we have and what we will show in the next iteration, which will be just before the preliminary report goes out. I said last time that we had some 8 institutions. That is actually not correct. When you name all of the institutions that have been involved with racially restrictive covenants in Northampton, going back to the early part of the 20th century, there are some 16 institutions that have been involved. Now, some of them don't exist. Some of them haven't been in Northampton for goodness knows how long. Some of them have been subsumed by other institutions a number of times over. But I think in the interest of transparency, and I think that everyone will agree with this, we should name them all and say what we have and what we know. Some of it is pretty down in the weeds for institutions that no one, frankly, is going to care about very much, but we should do it. So I do have that information. I think that what I should do with it is put it out to the commission as our sort of next to last draft of the recommendations before the final report. I would anticipate that we would do that like 2 days maybe before the date that we set for the commission, our commission, sending the preliminary report to the city council and the mayor. And then if anyone has anything that's sort of desperately wrong and or really minor, to speak up then, and we'll make that correction before the chair sends the preliminary report to the city council and to the mayor. What is tricky about the deeds is that these are institutions, as you'll see, that for the most part are held in high regard in this community. Some will say, well, they must have known, and we'll find out if they must have known. I think other institutions will be surprised. In any event, what our goal is, I think, is to have these institutions become significant, meaningful, and helpful participants in reparations in Northampton. It's a little hard to make an ask in that regard, given that they don't know who they are and that we haven't identified them publicly. In addition, what we haven't done yet, and what will become a significant part of the work of this commission going forward after our preliminary report is submitted, is what are we talking about in terms of actual reparative programs? What we have in this document is, for the most part, suggestions that are not involved with significant amounts of money, which is not to say, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, that it's an insignificant amount of money. If you actually add up everything that we have suggested here, there's a fair amount of money that's going to be expended one place or another. But in terms of cash payments or in-kind payments to individuals or institutions, there is no such suggestion in this first part, and that's by design, as we've done it. And we have left this hard question of what kind of cash payments, if any, to whom, for what, to our final report. We've got work to do between now and then, but at least, not but, and it is clear what the issues will be that we'll need to address. And in that regard, I think we will set up the meeting that we had proposed at one point with the individuals who had led the reparations movement in Evanston, Illinois, and perhaps with counsel as well as to what is legally possible or feasible at this point. I do think that based on what we will know, and this is just my personal opinion, so I'll be brief about this, that based on what we know our report is going to say about land use restrictions, which are not city restrictions, we should point out. These are private restrictions and private deeds between private parties that are racially restrictive covenants. Nonetheless, it seems to me that focusing a potential reparative program on housing is going to make a lot of sense. There's an infinite number of possible proposals which we'll deal with in the coming weeks and months, but housing seems to me to be at least an appropriate one, and we have a model for how that has worked in Evanston, so we can talk about it. We also have a lawsuit in Evanston to see, which we can talk about at some length, and we will later on. I guess 20-second diversion into the weeds. The lawsuit brought against Evanston has been is subject to a motion to dismiss by the city, not on the substantive grounds, but on the grounds that the statute of limitations has passed and that the parties who brought the lawsuit to try to stop the Evanston program don't have standing to bring it. So Evanston may well prevail in this lawsuit without ever having to actually get to the merits of the program. However, all that having been said, I think that there is a way to present, and what I intend to write in the next draft, subject to everyone's agreement that we're going to do this like 48 hours before whatever the date is that you establish for submitting this, and we can hold. It will be a public document, but it's not going to be public till we make it public as a practical matter in those 48 hours or so. So I think that we can distribute it that way. We'll name all the institutions. We'll identify the different deeds. We are going to focus on the financing, because what we are focused on, I believe, is institutional racism, and the individuals involved, I would suspect, had no idea what is in or what was in their deeds. As I've said to many friends who are homeowners, have you ever read your deed? I've been doing an informal poll, and as far as I can tell, no one ever did. But the financing corporations did, their lawyers did, and the institutional racism that this is indicative of, I think, is what we want to address. And we can and we will. What we will not have done in this report, and it's crucial to understand this, is say, okay, and what is the meaningful participation that we are seeking from those institutions that permitted, in fact, facilitated these ongoing racist covenants in properties, regarding properties in Northampton. We have not gotten there. And we should just be clear, we haven't. I think we do want to solicit from those institutions who will name at least some kind of recognition of the awareness that they're going to be named and or their indication that they would like to participate. But it's a very difficult ask to say we want you to participate meaningfully when we can't tell them exactly what the program will be or what it's going to cost or why. So there's a certain amount of, we're going to have faith in a process here that will work, and the goodwill and good faith of people in Northampton and the institutions in this city will come through. I have some faith in that. It doesn't make me comfortable to say I don't know what happens next, because in the legal profession, we want to try to figure out what happens next. And I can't do that here. And we can't do it here. And that's just going to have that, those unknowns will just have to be unknown for some period of time. But I think that the commission is in a good position to address those issues. So you will see is that there are a number of institutions in the city that are substantial and that are viewed as good neighbors and in many instances pillars of the community. Interesting. So I think that is an update. I can go through what the changes are, if you like, on the in the draft.
Let's maybe just give people a second to possibly
ask some questions
or ask questions.
Sure.
I mean, just to rephrase, you know, the question is, or the challenge, I guess, is we've already identified them. That's not an issue, right? The issue is, what would we as a group suggest, you know, to, or will we even put in the report what we suggest could be the types of, you know, reparative work that these different institutions could do. Is that correct? That's the question you're asking? Or a question?
The question I have is whether this would meet with the commissions and commissioners' sense of what we should say, which is we are going to ask these institutions for meaningful participation in reparation efforts in Northampton. Mm-hmm. And we'll acknowledge that there is work to be done on exactly what that means. And there are non-monetary ways to address some of these issues, and we suggest them. For example, we have a very...
I thought we were opening this up to comments and questions.
Well, Marcia, he was responding to my question.
Right, but what was said was, let's open it up. Give us the second.
Yeah.
And let's hear what people have to say, and now we're launching back into talking. So
okay, so you...
An hour meeting.
Yeah, you have the floor, Marcia. Go ahead.
I'm not saying anything right now. I'd like some time to quiet and see what people have to say.
Okay. Rachel.
So, from a practical matter, do we have a fund set up so that people could put money in the fund?
We have, as one of our suggestions, the creation of an account through the City Council, and that account not only would be able to receive city funds, but funds from private individuals and institutions. And it is, I'll find it, but it's near the beginning of our draft report as one of the proposals from us to the city.
Okay, because I know an individual who said they wanted to put money into the fund, and I didn't have that information. And the other second question, could you remind us the date that the preliminary report needs to be submitted? Or do you know, Sage?
I'm not sure where we're at.
I'm not sure when specifically.
Okay.
But soon.
Okay, thank you.
I can.
Garrick.
So we are running up against the quote-unquote clock of when we were supposed to have. But I have been in contact with the mayor's office and city council president, Jarrett. One of the things that we can do, which we previously in another commission I was in to study barriers to service, is we just had the chair come to a city council meeting, recognize, and just gave a brief update as part of the ask for extension. And so that was my thought. I think we all know that we need an extension, so we just have to pick a time where maybe Usman or someone else who is representative will come.
Today we're here now. I'm like, get on the agenda in 5 minutes. Okay, so that's a separate issue, it seems like. Renika. Wait, was there another question, Rachel, in there that we didn't miss? Okay, Renika.
So I guess I'm a little confused. What are we actually doing with these 16 entities? Are we just going to keep it until, like, right before this preliminary report and then shoehorn it into what we've already written? Like, what is the idea behind this? I don't quite understand.
Go.
Fair question, and I appreciate it. The idea is to name the entities. I think that to the extent that it's possible to somehow see if they would be willing to make a statement regarding participation in reparative efforts, that would be helpful, but I am increasingly pessimistic that there is a good way to do that. We want these institutions on our side, and we want them to participate. So to the extent that we could ask them if they're willing to before the preliminary report or as an addendum to the preliminary report, I think that would be helpful. I don't have a magic answer to how that will happen, but the answer to your question is very much yes. We're going to name. We should name them. I think we have to name them, and the time has come.
Okay, because I think that, like, we are giving them a lot of courtesy and a lot of faith and a lot of grace that we're not due African-American residents in Northampton. And I think the idea that they didn't know what was in those deeds is very wrong. There were entire cities set up in this country under racially restrictive covenants, like Levittown in Long Island. So people know what's in those deeds. People actively bought into neighborhoods because they knew that they couldn't be sold to African Americans. So I am not a fan of giving them any more grace than they have already had, and their ability to discriminate heavily against people that look like me, and what that discrimination generationally meant for people who look like me. As someone whose grandfather was served in World War II and then was denied his GI Bill rights, my family's trajectory looks a lot different than the white officers he served with, and I therefore have no more grace or faith that people will do the right thing. I am completely name and shame, and it is on them to address it and not us to hold their hand through it.
Yeah, I fundamentally agree with that. I also I would make just one amendment to what you said, which is we also want them on our side on this in terms of trying to make reparative efforts. They may or may...
So that means that, once again, I want you to understand what I'm saying, Bill, as a black woman. Once again, you are asking us to accept less than and to take and to hold someone's hand and say, yes, you hurt people that look like me, but I don't want to hurt your feelings, because if I hurt your feelings, you won't help me. Do you see how that is just perpetuating more?
I do, but it's not what I do, but it's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to hold their hands. I'm trying to present things in a way that allows for public participation in a meaningful way for them to say, we're wrong, I'm sorry, it should never happen, and we'll pay for it. That's what I'm looking.
You were saying you want us to present it in such a way that doesn't hurt their feelings. That means that they will be willing to work with us.
No,
That's exactly what I mean by holding hands. Instead of because if this were anything else, we would just be presenting data.
Well, that's what we're going to do.
We wouldn't be talking about, let's give them see how we can talk with it. It would just be like, this is the data, this is how it happens, this is how it shook out, and that's it.
That's what the report's going to say.
Okay, let me just sorry, Marcia. Felicia had her hand first, then you're next. You don't need to raise your hand, Marcia. You're good. You after Felicia.
Thank you. Monica, I so respect what you shared and also Bill. And I think as we think about relationship building and social connections and wanting buy-in and thinking about restorative practices, I don't think, for me, it's not about holding people's hands. It's more about repairing relationships and addressing conflicts in ways that involve positive outcomes. And so I do think that there's a piece for me that in having conversations with people can create better relationships for people to be on board with what we're doing and also addressing the situation by just naming it.
Fair enough. Marcia.
Here's the bottom line for me around all this, is that we've been talking about this for quite some time. And Bill, you're still the only person that has seen the information. And I'm just not comfortable with that. I've said that. I think that we did said that. The commissioners, we could do a straw poll and find out how each person feels, and I especially have an issue with this, with you being a white male and determining how this conversation is going to go. You've set the parameters for how we're going to do this, and you're suggesting that we leave it until the very last 2 days before the report is supposed to go out, after you said you were going to deliver something to us in writing today. And so now, once again, you've postponed that for us to see anything, if anything at all, and you're still maneuvering how this is all going to happen.
Yep.
And I just am not comfortable with that, and I think that, let me put it to you this way. This is what I've been wrestling with inside of myself. If I was sitting in Berlin and we were sitting with Auschwitz victims and they said, we are entitled to reparations, we feel like it's necessary and so on. And I was sitting in that room and I said to them, well, you know what? I think the best thing is for us to do this with the people, the banks from Switzerland that held all of your money. And I'll let you know right before a report is done who those banks are. And you don't need to know that right now. After I've said several times I'm going to give it to them. And I think after their total fury at me for holding their parents, what they consider their parents and parents' interests, I would have the humility, but I do believe to have that, you need to believe in something higher than yourself. So I don't know where people stand on that. But I would come into the room with some humility and say, well, help me understand what your concern is. Help me understand why you feel that, and let me build trust with you, and let me sit down and show you the information, and maybe a subgroup or some small group. But I would not sit there with this information and still be pushing this. I just have a problem with this, period.
Okay. Others? Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, Garrick, did you raise your hand? Oh, you're waving Jeremy. Other questions or comments?
While Jeremy's here, could I take one quick detour?
Sure.
This is part of the report. Jeremy, we have in particular a missing part of the report with regard to information which we have said should be available from Smith Voc that is available from the high school. Would you be willing to take a look into that? Someone here, I would appreciate if someone would look into that. Do you think you'd be willing to take a look into that and perhaps work with me on that? Because it's a missing part of the report.
Sure. This is by, could you repeat again what you said?
Sure. We have a part of the report that says Smith Voc should make available the same information that is available from the high school, from Northampton High, but I don't really have the information on what Northampton High does make available and what Smith Voc doesn't. So before we put this into a final preliminary report, we got to get that information straight. And I thought you might be interested in doing that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
So let's just talk afterwards, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Let's take a step back. I don't know when it became that you were deciding what was going on with this final report either. This is like all of this is just not, this is not comfortable. I don't know how we got here. I know that Sarah stepped out, but I don't remember anybody saying, oh yeah, so that means we're going to use one person who's now going to be determining what's going in and out of this final report.
Now, this has been in the report for the last, Marcia, this has been in the report for the last 4 drafts. The last 4 drafts.
About that.
Marcia, do you have any sections? So this do you remember how it grew? It grew out of recommendations that start off at the group. Like these are every recommendation here is a recommendation that somebody in the group mentioned.
Those are mostly recommendations that were developed by Sarah with information.
Okay, well, let's just say the most of them were. The opportunity is, so this has been built
But let me just
from that.
finish my thought,
Yep.
which is really critical here. That was developed by information that she analyzed, because we don't have that raw data. So she did the analysis around this stuff. And I've asked several times before she exited stage left, where was that data? Oh, you all know I asked that several times.
No. That's not the point. Is that each one of these recommendations are built off of what people have previously said that are possible recommendations for the report. Some are based on.
I said, Usman, I said, where is the raw data?
For which one? Marcia, name it. So you want to go by each one? We just.
No, I want to see all the raw data, because it means that individuals analyze things. One person can see one thing in raw data that another person doesn't see. They may see something else.
Okay.
So we've never seen the raw data. So I'll say it again, and I said it before.
Yeah.
I've never seen a report written that has the recommendations done before the report is.
Okay, so one of the deeds or tasks we need to do is, do you want to go through again each one and see which recommendation has what information? Is that what you're suggesting, Marcia? Or are you suggesting we just toss away?
I'm suggesting 2 things. One, let's deal with Bill. Bill,
She's one of them.
I would like, and I called Bill and I said, hey, I think the legal team should get together, the subgroup of the legal team, there's a study group, should get together, sit down with Bill and look at the information he has. Nobody else in this group supposedly knows this. Maybe you know, Usman, who these banks are. I don't know. Nobody else seems to know what's happening here. So I suggested that as a good way for us to look at the information, and then for us to suggest a process for how we roll it out to the commission for us to be able to have a conversation about what is the best way to approach our community with this information.
Okay.
Not just assume that we're going to tell them what to think. All right?
Okay. So do you?
Second piece of
Okay.
this, I just want to be very clear about this as well, is I got a report, and when we get to that section, I will be commenting on that. But somehow, somewhere along the line here, there's a lot of assumptions going on with agreements this group never built. So I just want to stop us right there.
Okay, so let's go. Let me let Jeremy and Renika in for a second. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you. So my question is just the document that Sarah has, or that you shared with us, that has all those recommendations and stuff. Is that available for us to look at, or do we still request edit access? And have you reached out to Sarah about that? Or?
This draft right here, I don't know, maybe I emailed it around. I don't know if you got it. Do you see it in your email, Jeremy?
Check a second.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just came today.
NCR files 2024.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking. That's the one we're talking about.
It says no after. Yeah, it's access.
That's not.
Is that the one, Garrett? Which one is it?
There was a email sent with, it's just forwarded as reparations, and there's an attached draft that Bill Newman sent. It just says recommendations of the Northampton Commission.
And that came out this afternoon, not.
This is the most recent one,
Didn't get much time
updated.
to look at it, but
Yeah, it is the most recent, and I apologize. I've been quite sick with COVID the last 10 or 12 days, so I did not get this out as early as I have. But it is primarily and essentially the same draft. This is the fourth iteration of this draft. There are some amendments, as you can see, that I've highlighted, but it's the same document, essentially, that we've now reviewed for the last 4 months.
Can I make a suggestion that somebody share screen and just display for the purpose of the recording, the draft that we're talking about? I think that would
Okay.
be
You have the
in the
ability to do
spirit
that,
of open.
Sage.
I think we could I will forward to Jeremy the copy that you sent me in Usman right now.
Okay.
Bill right now, so we're good on that. No.
Okay.
Let's not waste time on those things.
I think that it is important for folks to be able to see that, and so I think we should let Sage, as the person that's,
Okay.
doing the administrative things, do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it should be.
If we're going to talk about the report, may I just suggest, I had a conversation with Renika probably about maybe a month and a half ago. We sat down and I said to her, listen, based upon what I'm seeing going on right now, we need to reorg this information, because I don't know where this raw data is, and I don't know how we're going to be able to evaluate or analyze anything, and to be able to contribute anything in any kind of coherent and intelligent way. So we sat down and we said, okay, how can we reorganize this so that this information could be put together in a way with some fresh eyes on it, and not just through somebody who left, since we don't have the raw data. So we met, we laid it out. My understanding is she was meeting with several people about it. We met again a couple of days ago, and we laid out what we think could be a really good report to give to the city council, which would be an interim report, which we will move past that deadline in May, and with basically a progress of what's going on. What are the resources and various things that we need to finish? What are some of the things that we've come up with? And Renika, if you could speak to that might be helpful.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been talking about, like Marsha and I, like Marsha said, we sat and talked, and I've met with Usman and I met with Felicia and discussed it, is that we need to think of this report in easily digestible vocabulary look at things that they want to see and like know where they are. So I was thinking that we should kind of break it up into 5 like key areas where we want to talk about reparations, and those key areas being like housing, healthcare, education, safety, and business. And we put the recommendations that we come up with, that we decide to put in the final report, we fit them under those categories so that people can, so that it's not scattered, and it's telling a story of like what has gone on, what we've discovered, and how we best think that these recommendations can be laid out. And having said that, like, I agree with Marcia that like the interim report should be really short because like we've had the turnover with Sarah. We have that empty seat that we've had the entire time that we haven't filled, and now we have 2 empty seats with Sarah gone. We haven't had we don't have a research assistant. We don't have a meaningful budget. So, you know, like there are things that like we have kind of been hamstrung in our ability to complete the work. And I know that like this is a new approach and a new thing, but it does kind of feel somewhat purposeful that we're being pushed to produce something when we haven't been given the full set of tools to get it done. And like we've been mentioning for months that we think that we need an extension, that the other cities that we're looking at that have done this work took at least 2 years. So I am all for giving a very short interim report that we can give to the mayor and the city council and use that to get the extension and then organize things as we need to. And the categories aren't fixed, but we need to categorize this data to make it easily digestible for not just like us, but like the city council and the wider public.
Okay.
Right.
So,
and to Bill's credit, he came up with this idea of looking at the mortgages. It's an excellent area for us to dig into real estate, but it's not the only area of real estate. We should also be looking at rental and what has gone on, and there's a huge amount of data about how rental has been dealt with in this country to exclude African Americans.
okay.
So, and the same thing with the ensuring that the other 4 areas, that we look at those 4 areas and look at, okay, what data haven't we gotten? What data do we think we have that we really don't understand? Anthony, could you please undo that report? Because I can't see people. I mean,
Just for a second. Yeah, it's fine for a second.
I'll share. And really get down to the business of getting into the meat and the potatoes of what we're missing, what we have. That's the raw data that we can all look at. I have and put that into one area and put it into a Google file that everybody has access to and everybody can draw on and look at.
So
and,
just to...
And if people don't want to do that, then my question is, what are you doing here?
Okay. Actually, Marissa, go ahead, because I was going to ask you and Garrett to speak. But so I just have a question for Marcia later. But go ahead.
So to Renika's point, I think when we drafted the resolution, put forward those areas of inquiry were definitely what we imagined. They were in there, and what we, it's literally people living, working students. So that all sounds fine. Some of what is being suggested sounds somewhat of a reorganization of what is in Bill's draft, but I'm not suggesting that that's inclusive of everything. I guess I just, some of what we have come up against is that there is not data. It's not a question of that Sarah had data that analyze that we don't have. I think in our research and study, what we found was there is a significant lack of data. And that is something that I think among the recommendations would be to going forward to collect data. That's certainly something I would want to add to the police reform, the police issues. But it was not this commission. I did not. I speaking for myself as one of the authors of the resolution, was to make recommendations, not to do the work necessarily. Like, this commission would have to stay together and working for years and years to come to do some of these projects. When we have talked in the past, and I think the rental issue is a very significant thing to look into, and I think there's a very concrete idea I had for how that research could be done, which is for somebody to sit and look at all the classified ads from the newspapers, and that might give us some useful data. That is not the charge of this commission. It's to identify the work to be done and where there is data missing. It is not, I'm sorry, I'm talking.
Are you talking?
And so I think we ought to stay on track with a preliminary report. I think Bill's is a good start, but I think I'm also hearing that you guys may have drafted something. I would very much like to see it. I mean, and to be consider whether or not it's part of what we do. And nobody is deciding what is going forward to council alone outside of this meeting. There's nothing that should go forward to council that isn't reached by consensus by this group, and that's.
Let's clear the deck once and for all around this nonsense about we need to be together for years. First of all, what you just said is erroneous. There's a lot of hard data about how Black people were unable to do rentals all across this country. So that's not true. And we don't have to do everything by, there's some things that we can do case studies around. There's some things that we can collect data for. So just that is just simply not true, and so that's the reason why I reacted.
What did I say that wasn't true, though? I take it. Wait, let me finish my question. We are starting here from a premise. This whole commission starts from a premise of accepting that institutionalized racism and explicit racism and bias exists and played a role in this city's history. Collecting the data is an interesting and necessary study, and I offered one idea of a way some of that could be gathered. I don't start from a premise of it needs to be gathered in order to prove it. I accept it as proven. I accept it as true. Mm-hmm. What I think, but it sort of distracts them. The reason why I suggest that that work could go on, and documenting that history could go on forever. The question of what we recommend cannot and should not. We need.
You can read Honey Coates' work, and there's so much. You don't have to go on for years and years collecting this data. That's what I'm trying to say to you. And I don't know what Sarah was up to. I've never seen what she was doing, so I can't really comment on it. But I can tell you that that's not necessary. A lot of this information is already distilled down for us. It's a matter of us wanting to collect it. So yeah. I'm just going to clear the deck around this, and then I'm going to be done with this. That preliminary report is not a preliminary report. It's a slap on of an introduction in the beginning, and the same recommendations that we had issues with for quite some time, or at least I can't speak for other people. I can only speak for myself. I've had issues with the ridiculousness, with those street naming, And now and some of the other things of writing a handbook, as though writing a handbook can solve racism. If that was the case, it would have been done already. So I just want to be very, very clear from my look at that preliminary report, garbage in, garbage out.
Okay. Well, just a couple things real quick to point out. So just specifically, every person on the commission who has an idea, Marcia, you just mentioned one. Let's do renting, okay? Please, I beg you, do the research, write up your ideas. I emailed each person, and I said, what do you want to work on? What do you want to research? What do you want to put in? So, Marcia, if you have specific areas that you want to write about, can you just tell us what they are right now so we can earmark that to you for the next meeting? He's got to unmute.
I've been very clear from the beginning. Our real work is going to be found in reconstruction.
Okay, can you write up the research that you're talking about during reconstruction, bring it to the next meeting so we could look at it?
Sure, no problem.
Okay. And I have already emailed people, Rachel and others. Please bring, Rachel sent her research that she did around health disparities. And so, yeah, we'll let you, we have some time for that. We'll jump in. And then the second thing is that while some people on the commission clearly think that this is not a worthy document, I disagree. I think it's an excellent document, has a lot of good information. Is it limited? Yes. But I just want to say, Marcia, that I disagree with you. Okay, fair enough. We'll let it go at that, about this being, not a valuable tool for us to move forward. But let's let other people in, Garrick, and then Bill.
All right, so a couple things. One, I want to say, Renique, thank you for talking about things being digestible. I think that is important as we present information, to have it in places that people can kind of parse out the information. But one thing I just really want to get down to is, you had mentioned, Renique, and I think other people have mentioned this thing about missing seats here in this commission. If you look at the size, composition, and appointment process, it says the commission shall be a public body of at least 9, not more than 11. Because we did not fill a seat does not mean we did not do our job. And when Sarah left, we still are within the size and composition that we decided at the front. One of the reasons why we put that in is because during the police review commission, it was a larger commission, and they found that this work takes a lot longer time, and they had a lot of people leave the commission. So we wanted to build in to this process here a little leeway for us to have a kind of upper cap, but also know that everyone might not stay to the end. The other thing I want to just bring everyone back, and I've talked to you, Marcia, about this many times, is looking at what our charge is. And in the first paragraph on the Northampton Reparations Study Commission website, it says the commission is charged to consider what initiatives should be funded and implemented by the city to support redress and fair treatment for Black people who live, work, and learn in this community, examine ways to restore, grow, and nourish Black community and culture in Northampton for future generations, and suggest ways the city might meaningfully atone for historic wrongs. After that, there are some issues to be studied, but it's, as Councilor Elkins said, when we wrote this piece of legislation and resolution, it was not to it is to do the work, but not to have it be a fact-finding mission. And in fact, if you look at what has been put forward through everyone's collective talks, one of the recommendations is that we recommend that we create a standing city council reparations committee, that we ask for funding for that, so all the things that you want to do and people want to do, that we actually have the power and the ability to do that. So I think we're getting there's some cart before the horse happening here, is that this commission is really to make these recommendations so we can start doing that work that I know you want to do, that other people want to do. But the first step is making these recommendations, seeing what areas that the city can do and what our community can do to start helping to grow. So
I don't even know how you can say we have an implementation a report. We have not communicated with the community. We've not collected any data from the community.
Let's just, Marcia, let's let Bill in though. Let's let Bill in. Thank you, Marcia.
Sorry, I'm just responding to Eric.
Yeah.
And what he said. I don't believe we need to do this for 2 and 3 years, but the reality is every serious group has taken about 2 years to get this done. They did it in a serious fashion. And it sounds to me like you folks just want to do the okey-doke and throw it together. And if that's what this was about, then you didn't need a bunch of people from all different walks of life to do this. You could have just gotten a researcher.
Okay. Bill, go ahead. And Felicia, did you have something before?
In terms of our obligations as a commission and our obligations as a public entity, I think it is important to have as much research that we've looked at be part of our report, the final report, and the preliminary report as well. And one thing that I've not distributed again, because there are just minor changes in it, is the appendix that will go with this preliminary report, which is 25 to 30 different documents over 150 to 200 pages, which has a lot of the basis and further explanation for what's in the report itself. Also, if you look at the references, particularly in the footnotes, and you could do this differently, but you could make the report twice as long by making the footnotes part of the body. There's a lot of reference to a lot of material. So I absolutely agree we should be transparent. We should let people know what we've looked at and how, and I think that this is a good effort in that regard. And I can redistribute the appendix if we need to do it, which we will do, obviously, before the report itself.
Okay.
You said that we were being transparent when how many times have I asked for us to set up subcommittees and we have not set up one subcommittee?
Speaking of, wait, hold on a second, Marissa. Speaking of, Marcia, can I ask a question though? But Marcia, real quick, can you just give us a quick preliminary? I was going to ask you to give us the community engagement update. So this would be an opportunity right now with the few minutes left for you and others to maybe update us on the community engagement that you mentioned we haven't been able to do effectively. We did do Power of Truth, everybody, and that was some community members, but certainly not the scale in which we would hope it to happen. But
we have not done anywhere near what these other cities have done across the country. And once again, Mr. Olmsted, please forgive me, because I know that you want it to be like we're all getting along, and just chalk it up to me being an angry black woman if you need to. This is just totally unconscionable what we're doing. That preliminary report is not worthy of a city in Massachusetts that has 5 academic institutions.
And you know what, Marcia? You are absolutely entitled to be as critical as you want to be every single time. We welcome the criticism. At the same time, you're talking about getting work done. Please, eagerly, we're eager for you to, A, lead a community engagement event that takes place, and B, do all the research on Reconstruction and the legal stuff and bring it to us. And once we have that, we'll be able to get the report at least one step closer to your standards. But let me let other people in.
Let me just
Felicia.
Really quickly.
Oh, go ahead.
Part of the problem with leading community engagement is money, and we don't have any.
Okay. That's the quick update.
We didn't spend last year's budget, and we aren't in this year's budget.
Can I address that?
Sure. And then Felicia's been waiting pretty patiently.
I'll let Felicia go first.
As a member of the community engagement and committee, I think that we have had some great meetings. There have been people that have been on and off, and I think I think that part of the challenge is that people are derailing us from getting the things done because people are opposed to the ideas. And so, I want to just second the comment around Usman, and that we each individually come up with some ideas and recommendations so that collectively we can move forward. And I feel like, people need to understand that it's important also to think about space and how we're taking up space. And, Marsha, I often am seen as the angry black woman too, but here, this is not about the angry black woman, and so I also don't want to derail us with comments like that, as we are trying to really do good work and social change in our community. And it's about, listen, I'm not, it's not for argument or debate, I'm just saying that part of the reason why we can't get things done is because people are not in agreement and that there's not suggestions or ideas to move forward with sort of an alternative.
I'm meeting with the largest synagogue and the Universalist Church. You don't know what you're talking about.
I do know what I'm talking about, and you're right. This is an example of derailing us from the conversation and moving forward with the steps we need to take. And it's not about being angry. It's about being strategic and having an understanding and doing the work individually and collectively.
Jeremy, you're up.
You always don't understand strategy.
Jeremy, you're up.
Thank you. I've done some community engagement. I particularly have been looking more, of course, into BSU and SOCA and nations of high school in particular. And my dad just recently, apparently the elementary school at Bridge Street has already sort of like a group that actually looks into, these racial incidents and stuff at the school. So I'm thinking of connecting with them, maybe bring them here if possible, to speak and enunciate their things as well. And another thing, especially I'm trying to do is meet with BSU and SOCA, and then if I can, as I discussed in our last month, try to get some sort of form or a survey from them of the general experience of what an African American experience in high school is. So that's for community engagement purposes. And then to add a second point, one issue that was last time we tried to hold some sort of community engagement thing was there's a lot of legal opposition to it, as if people wanted a closed session or an open session. So we haven't really gone really well into what kind of session we want to. So I think one thing is we need to find, places where, people can meet, churches and all things, right? And then a second thing would also be look at the legality of things. How do people want this proceeded? How do people within the thing want to be presented? Do they want it to be closed or open seminar? Do they want it to be a small closed type group of certain people? Because not everyone wants to share all these things with, people in general. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sadly, Felicia's got to get the last word before we close it out.
Yeah, this is for community. And Jeremy, I wanted to connect with you too. But one of the things, we've been talking about surveys and trying to figure out engagement specifically about the youth. Well, as a member of the UMass faculty, there's the Center for Racial Justice and Youth Engagement Research. And I think we could do some really great stuff. And so I will be putting together some proposals for our next meeting and share that beforehand so that can be distributed to the public. Because there are lots of ways that we can do this that will include opportunities for us to move forward with our community engagement and working with our youth.
I'm meeting the Universalist Church and the largest synagogue here. And Jeremy, thank you for reminding everybody we couldn't come to agreement after we came up with a way that we were supposed to move forward with the community engagement. It got shut down. So let's remember history.
And we will remember it, and we will carry it forward. Marissa, the last word before we close it out.
And I promise I'll be really brief. I would put this on maybe let's put this under new business, maybe to be discussed in the next. I just wanted to assure that the money that was allocated in the last fiscal year budget, that is still ours. The way that happens is if it doesn't get spent within that fiscal year, it reverts to the undesignated funds. So say just being paid from the total that was. And if an event...
Not accurate. Once again, erroneous, not true. Talk to the budget department. What you're saying is not true. Usman knows that because I already talked to him about all of this.
I spoke to Director Nardi this today, because I understood that there were questions about this. Sage is being paid from the line item of the council, the council's line item for now. When the undesignated funds are released, which will happen in another month or two, then the council will probably have to take up an order to, it's an accounting thing. There's requirements about if money doesn't get spent in the fiscal year, it has to roll over to undesignated funds. And Director Nardi and I talked about, probably we should leave that for an agenda item at the next meeting. And
Put that on.
if I just want to add one thing, if an event gets planned and there is a need for money between now and then, anybody who is planning that, please come to Usman, or it can also come to Garrick and I, and we can help with that and talk to Director Nardi and talk to the mayor's office.
I've already worked out a deal with the mayor's office in Usman.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Despite the eagerness to continue for the normal time, we do need to close it out. So let's do roll call. Rachel.
Yes.
Monica.
Yes.
Usman, yes. Marsha. Marsha, roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Marissa.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Garrick.
Yes.
Felicia.
Yes.
All right, and Bill Newman.
Yes.
All right, we'll be in touch via email about figuring out. We didn't decide if we're going to try to meet halfway through, so I don't know what the view is, but I will email everybody. All right, see y'all.